Hi, this is Rich Friend coming to you for another podcast of Rare Conversations. And I know it's been a while since I've checked in with everyone. That's on me, and I'll try and make it more consistent. Today, it gives me great honor to be here with a author, a motivational speaker, and more importantly, someone who I call a very dear friend. This is Devon Raney. And Devon and I and his wife Rebecca and his daughter Madrona, we met in 2015.
Yeah.
2015
on the beach
in Cerritos, and he just kind of came up to me and came up to me and said, "No one goes deeper on big waves."
That's right. Big Rock. I said nobody goes deeper at Big Rock.
And I had no idea what he was talking about because I really.
Tell that story.
Okay.
So
no, this is about you.
No,
this isn't about you. No. That's just
I had to come talk to you because to get right into it, I have a vision impairment. My eyesight is really bad. I have no center vision. But I was out surfing at Cerritos anyway, which I try to do. And, I'm taking the rip out over and over. And I'm coming across, kind of trying to, drift across the bowl and catch what I can. The right's there. And there was this one guy going, and like super up around the point a little bit. Farther out, freight training, not turning really at all, just locking into the pocket on like this 7.6, and then just blowing by everybody all the way across the bowl. And I was like, what? Like, that guy's not moving for anybody, And when I saw him on the beach, it was Richie, and I'm like, yo, man, like, you really freight train right off the Big Rock. Nobody go deeper at Big Rock than this guy right here. But that was my best Hawaiian accent.
I had no idea
what I was talking about.
What he was talking about. I immediately got Jersey defensive, and I'm like, well, who's this guy? Like, what? Yeah. What? Like, because he was speaking surf lingo that I didn't understand. Now, Dev grew up in California. He's been out with his family in Hawaii for years now. How many years?
Washington. I've lived in Hawaii once.
No, Washington.
Yeah. But I'm a pretty good Hawaiian
accent. I'm not going to tell you which island.
You like that, right? Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you which island, but him and his family been living up in a beautiful area of Washington, and I've had the privilege of staying in their home, visiting with him. Dev and I became immediate friends, and I started finding out stuff about Devon that he just, he never let on to me. We just, became friends, and all of a sudden I found, he told me he couldn't see that well, and he asked if I could take him up and show him some waves at Pastor, and I said, I'm not the person to be, I'm not a good surfer, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, if you can show me, and all of a sudden, I'm seeing him take off on different spots, and I'm like, what's he doing? Like, why is he all the way over there? Why is he over there? I didn't know that Dev's pretty much his vision impairment was that greater, and so he explained it to me, and then I got it, and I just, after we became friends, and our relationship grew stronger, and that's why I say, sometimes, on these podcasts, we talk about real estate, we talk about the market, we talk about community, and I thought it would be really special to have someone come in here and just kind of talk about life for a bit and relationships. And this is his book, Still Sideways, and it's got the context underneath it, Riding the Edge Again After Losing My Sight.
I didn't come up with that, by the way. That
was Patagonia.
Yeah. I didn't actually love that subtitle.
This is a great read, and it's not just, it kind of deals with the stages of Devon's life, what it was kind of like before, what, how it affected his family. And there's not many people that I've met that are more family oriented and a romanticist, and I throw in the romanticist part. Yes, it is. It is. I throw in the romanticist part because Rebecca and Devon allowed me the honor of presiding over there's a name for it, but I'm just going to call it revowing.
20-year re-up. She signed up for 20 years re-up.
After 20 years.
I got to cut you off. I got to start talking now.
Please,
so please. We went let's see. we did become really good friends really quickly. And I think for me, that happens when I find somebody that has like a certain level of empathy right off the bat. And Richie, had that, and certainly started when we were staying for a month in Pescadero in 2015, and we had kind of some awkward things happen. Our first night there, all of our stuff was stolen, and it kind of, our daughter was 7 at the time, and when they came in, she was sleeping. They took her iPad right out from underneath her arm. It kind of shook us up. It's not like it wasn't the raddest way to start on your first night. So we were looking for a different spot. Richie found us. Well, I guess we found the rental in Todos, but Richie knew where it was. It was near his first house, off the kind of the pay. And he started picking me up in the morning and taking me surfing. And I just thought that was like, it seems like not that big of a deal, right? Like if I could drive, if I had a car, I would pick people up. I'd drive them around, but it's amazing. Like it's one of those things that doesn't happen very often. People kind of miss it. Like they think like, well, his eyes don't look that bad, or oh, his wife will take him to the beach. And certainly Becca we were going every morning. She was fishing and I was surfing, but it's like in a month's time, she wanted to sleep, a couple days, and Richie started picking me up, and I was just thinking and maybe it was the vulnerability that came with, kind of being robbed that first year, or just the state of mind we were in. I mean, Becca and I certainly, we weren't gelling that well that trip. Like it was just a lot of like, should we go home? All of our stuff's been stolen. They left our surfboards and our fishing poles. It's kind of like, oh, we should stay. What kind of an example are we setting to our daughter if we just fly home at the first sign of trouble? So there was a lot of like mixed emotions, but I think that could have accelerated. I think maybe the friendship too, but I literally just remember being in the truck with Richie and just being like, yeah, things are kind of sucky right now. I mean, the person I didn't really know hardly at all. And then him paddling me around at Pastora and kind of introducing me to a couple people. But he knows everybody there, which, actually we just went for a little surf this morning, and everybody on the beach, am I right, Becca? We're like, Richie, what up, Richie? Wait, why am I even here? I'm here on this weekend to celebrate this guy's 60th birthday. So, it was cool to see how many people, 11 years later or whatever, still like talk to him on the beach and know him. And I mean, you got a big old attaboy for being 60 and paddling out and being in good shape. And I just think it's really cool. So all that stuff did happen pretty much like he said, but I think the friendship grew over the years, and I've always been very grateful that he's taken the time to come up and visit us in Washington, because I think that's part of getting to know somebody. You got to go up and see where they live as well. I think a lot of people come down to Todos Santos because it's such a special place, and it's kind of that whole like, I don't know if they behave in the same way in Mexico as they do at home. It's like, I'm gonna go down to Mexico and like we're gonna have our 2-week vacation or whatever. And so it's always been like a big deal, I think, for Becca and I to try to get Richie up to Washington so he can see where we live and how we live. And actually a big credit to Richie. It's like one of the biggest compliments anyone has ever given me is after the first time Richie and his friend Lisa came up to Washington and stayed with us on Bainbridge Island, when he was leaving, he said, Dev, he said, I just think you're the same guy, here up in Washington that you are when you're down in Todos. And I thought that was a really big compliment, right? Because I think that's a way that I've wanted to live my life. And I think Becca has too. It's like authentic wherever we go. We're not showing up in Mexico and putting on one game face and then going back home and putting on another, and that has always kind of stuck with me. And so I have enjoyed this guy for the last 11 years. I'm happy to be here for his 60th birthday.
Appreciate it, Dev. It's a mutual feeling, and just to let you know, like, this is the kind of relationship. I picked these guys up at the airport yesterday afternoon, and we just kind of left off we just started where we left off, kind of breaking each other's chops, joking around immediately, and just It was kind of a natural flow. I should mention on the side note, like when I went to pick him up in the mornings to go surf, like I just couldn't believe someone wanted to surf with me. That's like, please. I was like, wow. I was like, someone wants to surf with me? Right on. And
so when you say we pick up right where we left off, that's pretty much like you making fun of me, right?
That's pretty much
it. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, so it's not hard to pick right up there, right? Like,
Devon has also done a lot of motivational speaking in his life, and that involves, I think, speaking to kids, speaking to adults, all types of motivational speakers. I'm going to give it like, and he's even spoken to the group here at Rare. I had him come in a few years back and come in and do give a speech to our team about just kind of exceeding in life and moving forward. And I just want to share a really great inspiration for me is we went hiking at the Old Port, which is a pretty famous hike here. Everyone kind of knows the Old Port, and Rebecca and Devon hadn't been there yet, I don't believe. And we were going hiking, and I knew it was, Devon told me he has, no issues hiking. He does all sports to an extreme level, and he's very talented. He's an athlete. And we were going on a hike, and I knew it was just going to kind of be, it wasn't that rough, but so when we got up to the top, basically, I think you were carrying like a umbrella, like a post.
That's right. Somebody got me like.
It was for the house that you were staying. Right. You took like an umbrella post, and when we got up to the top, we were going to take the trail that goes around to the bottom, but instead we chose to go the side route. I don't know if Rebecca remembers this, but we chose to go the side route, which was kind of steep down the side and kind of rocky. And we started heading down, and I literally on a path really narrow. And I was having trouble kind of like navigating that path. And I was like, it was, and I turned back. I'm like, Deb, you okay? You good? And Rebecca started yelling, oh, he's fine.
That's right. I think, yeah.
And I just after that day, like we had come back and my truck had a window broken, and it was just, it didn't matter. It was such a beautiful time to just spend some time with my friends out in nature, but to experience like there was, to me, after that day, I was like, really, it was like a refueling, if you will, because I'm like, there's nothing I can't do. There's nothing that I cannot do. And I just wanted to share one of the stories where I was inspired in my life. And there's been a few based on just hanging out with Devon on just what's a normal day. So,
well, it's super kind, Richie. I think I lost about 10 pounds in nervous sweating on that hike. I was sweating so much because I had to anyway, writing has been a big process, and Richie's certainly right. I do enjoy speaking, to young people in particular, just because I feel that that's like middle school, high school. Those are a time, that is a time when, kids are under so much pressure. Our daughter's 19, I think, having written a book with a vision impairment and seeing it come to fruition and be published and be put in audiobook, it was a big accomplishment in the sense that I did it without any computer audio programming. I mean, it's one, I don't even really know where to go with this when we're talking about ways in which we have, I guess, hurdles on a daily basis. If you're really going in that direction in this talk, what do we all have? Everybody's got something, right? And certainly, Richie, in your story, you've overcome a lot to be here today, to be sitting in this room that's your place and the thing that you build, and that's an inspirational thing in itself. But I think every one of us has something. Everybody's got something, right? And for me, that hurdle at that time when I was writing, so that was about, I guess, 10 years into, to my vision impairment. And so I had adjusted a lot, in the sense that I was a dad, a husband, the career change. I mean, there was emotionally, I'd gotten to the point where I was okay with where I was with my eyes, but I still, I'd just come off a big adventure that there's a big section in the book about that, where we had ridden our bicycles. I was on the back of a tandem bike from our driveway up in Washington, basically the whole West Coast, from the tip of Washington down to Tijuana. And we towed our surfboards, on a trailer behind the bike trailer. We had 90 pounds, it took us 65 days. We were sleeping along the beaches as we went. And that was a really cool experience. And I kind of felt when I was done with that trip had been in a couple magazines, and it had created a handful of opportunities to speak, at high schools along the way in kind of an authentic way, right? Where I was showing up at the high school with the bicycle and the gear on the trip, right? Because it's the worst thing in my mind about being an inspirational speaker, not even inspirational, what you call it, motivational, is like when you're just out there talking about something that you did like 20 years ago, right? I mean, let's face it, we're getting old. I mean, you in particular, right? But like, nobody wants to be out there. So for me, that was a really cool way. I don't enjoy talking about things that I've done a long time ago, or, like kind of what is that when you're still on the coattails of kind of something that you've done once, right? I mean, I feel like we need to be doing, right? Creating, I mean, freshening, our approach. Our approach kind of remains the same. Like, how do we find a creative way to get over specific hurdles? But you can't be like, well, I did it once. Like, I did this one thing once, right? I mean, we got to redo it like over and over and over. So that was a really cool thing to be able to, pedal up to high schools on this trip. So we took the coast the whole way. But if there was any high schools that had reached out to us that wanted us to, come and speak about the adventure, and we could actually cycle up to that high school while we were on the trip, then we would. So like Santa Cruz High School, right? That's close enough to the beach where we were sleeping and surfing that we could peel off from the trip, go to Santa Cruz High School, speak, in the auditorium, and they packed out those auditoriums, and that was really fun. And we did that. And some of that, experience, I guess, maybe led a little bit to the book. But I wanted to write as a kid. Becca can tell you that. Like when we got married in 1999, or we were married in 2000. 2000. Oops. Well, when we wrote our vows and kind of our goals for our life, one of them on there for me was, I wanted to build houses, I wanted to be in construction, but I wanted to write a book at some point. And so I kind of got cracking on that, I guess, in 2015, like right after I first met you. I started writing, I think, when I got home that winter, or maybe that spring, and it just kind of became the time for me, right? And I'd always written. My parents were, writers. My dad was a writer, writers in the family, blah, blah. But I finally felt like I had something to say that mattered, to me in a way that was like big enough to get it in like a chronological order, like a life kind of before my vision impairment, which we had a really cool life. Beck and I, when we were first married, we lived on a sailboat, and we kind of had, chased our dreams down. I've been doing that, kind of living on my terms since I was a kid. And I wrote like in that fashion, kind of light, heavy. So I'd go childhood flashbacks to a current running narrative that was like about, what I went through, with vision loss. And through that process, I think where I'm going with this and why I'm rambling so much about it is, I think that was the biggest hurdle I'd ever had to overcome. I mean, Becca might say something different. I mean, there's been a lot of them in my life, but was like how to write without using a computer program that read out loud to me. Does that make sense? So I would start every night with there's a braille bump on F and J, I think it is, and like I would type, and I was writing like in the evenings at that time, and then going way into the night. And then, the next day I'd print off this, and I started writing stories, right? Like childhood stories, or that was how I was going to format things. And then Becca would read them, and, we'd read them around the fire at night, or we'd and everybody would laugh, or everybody loved them. But it was like, look, this was not going to be a thing that I was going to have Rebecca do with me. You know what I mean? She does enough, right? I mean, she's like driving, she's like running the coffee shop that she owned. It's like, it's not going to be like, hey, can you edit my writing also, right? So I looked at, getting that computer program. I think it's JAWS or whatever, JavaScript, maybe, I don't know. And reads back to you what you've written. And the idea of like listening to, a robot voice for 3 years of my life was just like, I just wasn't going to do it. It's like, I wanted human interaction, and what I ended up doing was I ended up hiring a high school student from, a friend of ours. They're Stanford grads, their kids are brilliant, and their daughter, Catherine, was like, I think she was a senior at the time, Yabby. And she would come over every day for 3 hours a day. And she would read, first she'd start like kind of cleaning up what I did. Like if I had too many spaces, and if I had caps in the wrong spots, no comma, she would start cleaning it up. Then she'd read it back to me. And then, we would go to work, like cleaning it up the way that I thought it should flow. Right. And here's the cool thing. I know I'm kind of going on about this, but basically, and I think this is a tool that all writers use, although I wasn't aware of it at the time, but the good ones do, I'm sure. But basically, like, when you hear your work read out loud to you, if it's smooth, there's no hiccups. Like if you could pick it up and read it and you don't get hung up on anything, then it's smooth in your head, right? Because it's always twice as smooth if you're reading it like silently to yourself. But to read it out loud, really, and so she would read, and I think that's why it ended up being the first Patagonia book to be released simultaneously in hardback as it did in audiobook. All right. So usually like the book's got to come out in hardback and then it's got to kind of prove itself for a year and then it'll come out in audiobook. And so, but Penguin Random House put it out in audio at the same time as it came out in hardback. And I think that was a huge win, right? To be the first at anything was cool, but and I think that came as a result of having to find a unique way to get around a specific hurdle, right? I mean, that result wasn't necessarily just because like I was writing super rad, right? It was because Catherine was reading it out loud. I mean, I was working with, and let's face it, like it isn't like a dream, right? To be working with like your friend's high school daughter, right? I mean, it's like, hey, so you want to write a book? How are you gonna do it? I'm gonna ask this kid to help me. You know what I mean? So it took a great deal of like, I don't even think humility is the right word. I mean, I just literally had to accept like where I was and how are we going to do this and how are we going to get to this result, when we had to kind of cross this huge valley or get over this huge hurdle. And so to have her read it to me, out loud and to hear it out loud, I mean, I literally like listened to it with her voice over and over until it was smooth, and I think that's just kind of a cool result of having to deal with the challenge. You know what I mean? I don't know if that...
And this is actually the cool result of that because, quite frankly, it's a great read, and it's not just about it's Devon's story, but it's much more than that. And I wouldn't be surprised one day if they turn that into a movie. Quite honestly, yeah.
Who's gonna play?
I would probably. No one would play me.
No, I know. Wait. I know that one guy. What's that guy's name? He's from Sons of Anarchy. You know who it is. He looks just like...
No.
Help me out.
I know.
You know what I'm talking about?
Ron something.
Yes, yeah. Ron. What's his last name?
No one's playing.
I'm going to reach out.
I would like to say this. Two things. Devon had mentioned he likes to kind of pivot into other things and not talk about something 20 years ago. This is not a person that rests on his laurels by any means. He goes out and lives life, and I've seen evidence of that, and him and his family. I mean, it's contagious to be around this person. The other thing is that, and there's proof of that. Right now, he's pivoting into, this is someone that used to build houses. He knows so much about houses. When we do tours down here on real estate, he just starts rattling off stuff. And it's amazing for me as a broker to see like his knowledge of how a house functions, but not just the construction end of it. He follows markets. And with that, he's pivoting in right now. I think you're almost done with your real estate license.
Yeah, I'm done with the hours. I got to take the test on the 24th. And I'm excited about that. He's been a huge inspiration to Richie.
He's going to get into real estate up in Washington. He's going to start selling. Becca's making him go back out to work, much to his chagrin.
Yeah. Until it becomes a movie, someone's got to go work. Ron Perlman. Ron man, that's it. Write that down, baby. We got to call.
And also, I just, here's another example of just like, I asked Devon literally, I think, yesterday or the day before, hey, you're coming down here for the weekend. Would you mind doing a podcast with me? And he's like, absolutely no problem. Let's do this. And I gotta say, that's just an example of how he lives. And so, for me, Devon had mentioned I've got a kind of a milestone birthday coming up, and the fact that him and Rebecca flew down here, it's like you know, for me, it's great to know that I have people like this. I am really blessed with what I do, with where I live, and with the people I surround myself with. And to have people like this in my life, I know it sounds a little, you know, but this is where I talk about those things, and this is a conversation that Dev and I have, like the times he was discussing when we'd be driving up to Pasteur, or when we in the car together. Like, these are the life conversations, and for me, learning conversations that are part of like this special relationship. So I really appreciate you doing.
Well, it's a testament to you, Richie. You get back what you put out there, and I think it's all over this place. It's all over this town, and you're not going to sit here, spend this time telling us your story. Although I think you have a spectacular story, and I think that if you were to the place you've made for yourself here. I don't know if you thought you'd do that 30 years ago, but you've made a safe haven and a beautiful place here. It's an honor to be here.
Thanks. And I wanted to, the book is still Sideways. Patagonian's publishing it. One of the great times last September, I was up visiting these guys with Carolina, and we went into a Patagonia store. That was like, go to the store, and like, I got a discount in there. You guys go in and do some shopping. And we went into this huge, it was like a block long in Seattle, huge Patagonia store. And we went in there, we were shopping around. We picked up the book and we went behind the counter, and I said, you know who this is? Like, kind of like, look who I'm with, you know? And he's like, and we did a big photo with, I think there were 2 women working there, and we all took a photo, Carolina, myself, Devon, Rebecca, and the people working there with the book, with the author. And what a thrill. Like, that was really,
made me look good. You made me look good. That's what I'm saying.
So I really thank you for doing this podcast. And this is going to be out on Spotify, YouTube. It'll be on the Rare website. And shout out to Devon and Rebecca's daughter, Madrona, who's going to be going to a new college. Not that it's her first year in college, but new college in the end of September. We wish you the best of luck. And once again, just thanks.
Thanks for having me, Richie. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
60.